Are you at home or hotel?
Hotel. I'm at the Courtyard in Queens in Fresh Meadows, New York.
Okay.
Yeah, this was an interesting week. It started out at home in Atlanta, and then Monday afternoon I flew to West Palm Beach for a team offsite, which was actually pretty cool. I mean, it was kind of neat. We were at the there's a Club Med resort down there, Port St. Lucie, Florida. So we had like there was a business dinner kind of thing, and then in the morning we had to work from 8 to noon, and then we had 6 hours of free time. So I was like, me and some guys went out on a catamaran for like 3 hours, and stuff like that. So it was actually pretty neat. Did that was yesterday, and then today, another 4 hours of work meetings, and then flew to Atlanta briefly, and then to New York, and then here I am.
Man, yeah, I'm doing that road life.
Usually it's not so bad. So like I've definitely had different parts of my job here at Splunk. I've been at Splunk a long time, but I've had multiple different jobs. It's definitely been worse. So for the most part, I only travel, like big trips, like going to, Vegas or West Coast or something once or twice a year. And then my customers are all pretty much just a little commute, like I'm driving 30 minutes or an hour or something. And that's not even every day. So nice. I can't complain at all.
Yeah. Last year I hit lifetime platinum with Marriott.
It's one of those blessing curse things.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, yay, I got all these rewards. That's awesome. That means that I never was at home.
Right. Yeah. It's a catch-22, but I don't travel like that anymore. With my new gig, I travel fly maybe 6 times a year or something like that. So it's a big difference. It's nice. I work from home now. So.
Oh yeah, I love that.
And PFEs, I mean, you guys used to actually jump out of the airplanes, right, in your ninja costumes right into the data center.
Yeah. Thankfully, I didn't have to do, in all my PFE career, I didn't have to do that many reactive cases. Most of it was proactive, but there were a few times, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, I got to bring up the stream so I can see everything. Bear with me a moment here. Oh, it says live now. I should go to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to bring up the... okay, muted. Okay.
Yeah.
That was fast. Nice reaction time.
Okay, now I just got to figure out where the Skype screen is here, and whatever I want to have on the screen, I'll be ready to go.
Yeah, so Ashley, what happened to me last week is I had a TIA, which is also called a ministroke. And what that means is with the stroke, you have a blood clot that blocks a blood vessel in your brain and causes damage. With the TIA, the blood clot dissolves, so the symptoms go away.
Wow.
However, because that's happened, statistically, I'm at an increased risk for stroke now. So I'm on some new medication in hopes of preventing that.
Like some blood thinners or something?
Yeah, blood thinners, aspirin, and cholesterol medicine, which is supposed to help prevent stroke. My cholesterol was decent, but for whatever reason, my blood pressure was really high in the hospital. So that's probably what caused the issue. I don't have all the details yet. I've got follow-ups and stuff. They did all kinds of tests while I was in the hospital. They did, EKG. They did CT scan with and without contrast. They did an MRI. They did an echocardiogram. All kinds of blood tests. I had the full diagnostic suite.
Wow.
Man, scary stuff.
Yeah. It's funny, though, when I was in the hospital, because all my symptoms went away really quickly, I was like, I feel fine. I wasn't worried in the hospital. It's when I got home from the hospital and started doing research, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about this, guy.
Now I understand that when they said they were keeping me for observation, it's because that I was statistically likely to have a stroke. So.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad you're with us, man.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, so that was crazy last week. And I had just gotten back on Wednesday at about 9 o'clock, I think is when I finally got home. And I went to bed and slept for like 10 hours.
Man.
Because you don't get to sleep in the hospital. In fact, they did my MRI. They came to get me for my MRI at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, you kidding me?
No.
Wow.
The hospital that's a very busy hospital. And as I was going to have my MRI, they were wheeling somebody else out. So my guess is they were that backed up doing MRIs that I had to wait to get mine until 4 in the morning.
Huh.
Which was crazy.
Yeah. So, you want to talk about more positive things?
I certainly do.
You're alive. We're here. Very glad. We were praying. But let's talk to Ashley and see what he's been up to. When is the last time that we had you on the podcast?
I was on the podcast once. I actually looked it up the other day. I think it was like 2013.
Oh, okay. So it's been
a long time ago. Yeah. Long time ago.
So it's probably been long enough that we should reintroduce you, and you should probably
so.
Go into the the meaning of your Twitter handle name as well. So Ashley, welcome to the podcast. Tell everybody who you are, where you came from, and what is a Goatee PFE.
Sure. So my name's Ashley McGlone. I hail from Columbus, Ohio these days, and been doing coding of some form for, gee whiz, I add up the years now. I got a Commodore VIC-20 when I was 12 years old. I'll be 47 next month. So that makes it, 37 years I've been writing code of some kind. I did about, I used to teach MCSE classes on NT4.
Wow.
And 1000. Taught A+. That was all around the turn of the millennium. Taught Windows 95, Office 97 back in the day. Then I went to Toyota for about 8 years. Then I went to Microsoft for just shy of 8 years, where I was a PFE, Premier Field Engineer. That's where I built the brand Goatee PFE. So there, I was blogging, tweeting, and doing a lot of video work, conference speaking, kind of the whole social media platform brand building thing to build my career. Mm-hmm. And then left Microsoft in September of 2017. Just 2 years ago, actually, last week, I joined Taenia. So that's kind of the short story.
The last time that you were on the podcast, you were full on in Goatee PFE mode. Mm-hmm. And then you left Microsoft. What was behind that decision? And were you still in Ohio at the time?
Let's see. I was in Kentucky till 2003 to 2010. No, I was in Ohio, Columbus. Yeah, I moved to Columbus in 2010. So I was with Microsoft in Columbus. Yeah. And I started with Microsoft the first working day of 2010, so like January 4th. Mm-hmm. And I left on September 1st of 2017. So it was exactly 7 years, 8 months with Microsoft. Cool. And while I was there, I had a popular TechNet blog on Active Directory PowerShell.
You sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still meet a lot of people at like walking into hotels, people say, "Hey, are you?" It's crazy. It's like
every once in a while, and these days it's like kind of rare because I'm not usually at some of the Microsoft conferences like I used to be. But it's funny because I'm like I'm just a this guy, just podcasting. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it was funny. I was in the Bay Area for my new hire training at Tanium, and this guy comes up to me literally in the hotel. I'm checking into the hotel. He says, "Are you Ashley McGlone?"
Oh.
Like, I'm in the Bay Area, miles from home. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you taught me PowerShell. I watched all your videos." He was just starting new in PFE. It's like, "Oh, sorry to tell you, man, I just left Microsoft and I'm now with Tanium." So, but yeah, I did a lot of video work. I did 3 MBA courses there. I did probably half a dozen or more like full-length video trainings on PowerShell with some peers there. Wrote courses on PowerShell, particularly DSC. I was really heavy on DSC at the time. So wrote a lot of training, delivered a lot of training. I added up when I left Microsoft, I'd spoken at 20 conferences in like 7 years or something. The PowerShell Saturdays. I was at the first PowerShell Saturday with Ed and Teresa and a bunch of folks.
Cool. Yeah. Those are awesome.
Yeah.
In fact, I think I might have met you in person at one of those. Did you come to Atlanta?
Yeah. That's where we met. I met you and your wife in Atlanta.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have a picture that comes up on my Google Home of the two of us occasionally, Ashley.
Yeah.
When we met that time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
because you guys were my heroes, man. I mean, it's like when I'm commuting to customers as a PFE, and I'm going to listen to the PowerShell podcast. I mean, that was the thing. So I still have memories driving down the road listening to you guys for years. And I really appreciate everything you've done with the PowerScripting podcast and keeping the community going.
Well, we try. So let's flash forward now. You left Microsoft in 2017. You went to this company called Tanium. Why did you change jobs, and what did you find once you got there?
Yeah, so I had a really good run at Microsoft as a PFE. I felt like I'd kind of stretched my legs and mastered the role. I was ready for a new challenge. I looked around internally for some opportunities. Kind of behind the curtain, Ed had retired, and he had put my name in the hat to be the next scripting guy. Ed was my mentor for a while at Microsoft. We had a good relationship, and still talk to this day some. But he put my name in the hat for the next scripting guy. The product team wasn't. They were still getting their bearings, and there were some reorgs as usual, and they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do, and it just never materialized. So this opportunity came up. I'd been pinged by a couple recruiters on LinkedIn, and having a blog, I had people ping me all the time on LinkedIn. I just ignored everything until one of my former peers at Microsoft, who was at Tanium, said, "Hey, you need to stop ignoring those recruiters." And so I checked it out, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is really cool stuff."
Yeah.
Because what I found was, and again, this sounds like sales, but I promise it's just the glory of an engineer finding this cool thing. It's like everything I'd wanted in 20 years of IT, I finally found in this product called Tanium, because being an automator and a scripter, this is a platform that lets me use PowerShell or any other language I want to use to deploy my scripts at scale with a GUI interface that makes it easy, so I can deploy, I can request data from an endpoint or take action on an endpoint across literally hundreds of thousands of machines in seconds.
It is so fast.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Tanium is so fast. Or I should say, it's fast when you want it to be slow, and it's slow when you want it to be fast. If you make a mistake, it's guaranteed that it's going to rip. And
yeah. So the thing was, I finally found this platform where, what I realized was no matter how many remoting tricks I knew in PowerShell, and I taught this stuff for years, right? I mean, no matter how many remoting tricks or parallelism, multi-processing PowerShell tricks, I could never get the results that I was getting with Tanium. Mm-hmm. And so it just blew me away. And so I came to Tanium to make the world a better place and fight the bad guys. And we actually have a whole security and ops story. A lot of people don't know that we started as a security company, but really we do a lot of software deployment and patching, asset inventory, compliance scanning. It's a whole platform, kind of like Splunk as a platform for data and all that. like ServiceNow is a platform for workflows and processes. Tanium's really a platform for the endpoint. So you can do your ops use cases that I just mentioned, but then you can also do your real-time malware detection and alerting and forensics on endpoints and all kinds of crazy cool use cases. So it's been a great transition for me. I never get bored here. I don't have to travel as much, which is nice, spend more time at home. But so I do everything cradle to grave with customers. So everything from pre-sales to POCs, implementation, support, QA on our own product.
So that's interesting. So let's back up a second and kind of flesh this out. So what is your title? Do you know what?
Yeah. So technically my title is Director of Technical Account Management. It sounds really fancy. I'm a TAM.
Okay.
All right. So and some orgs
y'all have.
Huh?
How many employees do you guys have?
We are growing really fast. When I hired in, I was employee number like 700 something, like 600-ish employees, and now we're well over 1,000, and that's just in 2 years. So we're growing at a really fast rate. Matter of fact, there's over 60 former Microsoft employees now at Tanium. A lot of former Splunk employees. I mean, you name any company that's popular in the IT industry, we've got former.
Yeah, it seems like there are waves where that it's like a small world after all when you look at it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So Jack Coates, he was a really good line over at Splunk. I think does he still run product for you guys?
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a neat guy. I've met him a few times.
So we need to back up though and just like really give a good explanation of what Tanium is, because I want to make sure that we're not leaving the listeners behind, because and starting in the middle. So you mentioned that it's for automation, but it's really kind of it's a platform here. So
how does it work?
How does it work, and what makes it tick, and why would somebody use it?
Yeah, so it's a real-time endpoint communication platform, which sounds super vague. But basically, it's a way that you can talk to literally hundreds of all the endpoints in your environment. We have customers that are over 500,000 endpoints, some of the largest customers in the world, and some of the worst network connectivity situations. But they can still get answers from their endpoints in seconds. And that answer can be a WMI query, a PowerShell script, VB script, Bash, Python, whatever kind of script you want to deploy, Windows, Mac, Linux, even Solaris and AIX. So we can query all the endpoints in your environment because Tanium was designed to solve a couple problems. Think about all the different enterprise tools you've seen over the years. They scale so far, and then they start to kind of get ragged at the edges, and they slow down over time. The funny thing about Tanium is the bigger you get, the faster it actually works, because you got more endpoints. And so it uses a peer chain. We call it a linear chain, where one peer talks to the next peer. And so we optimize communication to the subnets by, if we're sending out a patch or a software deployment, we'll just send it one time to each subnet. We can also manage endpoints that are roaming on the public internet, which is something that is unique to Tanium as well. It's a challenge for a lot of other products, but we can still have some of that real-time communication where, if you need to, it's a 0-day situation, for example, and you need to know where everybody's RDP patch status is, right, for this latest one of these recent Microsoft things. We can give you that status literally from your machines that are on the LAN or roaming at a hotel, for example, just literally within a few seconds. And that just blew me away. It looked like science fiction when I saw it the first time. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. So it wasn't, and it was real. And it's a really good culture at this company. A lot of high performers. The bar at Microsoft was high, but it was even higher to get into Tanium. And it's just really quality people who really care about saving the world, literally saving the world from bad guys. Because as companies get bigger, they can't answer those basic questions. How many machines do I have? What's running on them? And am I okay? Is my environment compromised? And so that's what we help people with every day. And you think about, having the power to run a net stack command across 100,000 machines and see what everything's talking to in seconds, it just blows your mind. And so it's still kind of giddy to watch that work. Yeah.
So is it, at what point do you need Tanium? I mean, do you have to have 1,000 devices before it's even interesting, or, you know, kind of what is there a sweet spot? I mean, obviously, it seems to me, and I heard this from Jack, super biased, but I respect him. It seems like you guys scale better than almost anything else on the planet at this particular challenge.
Right.
Does that mean that this is too enterprisey for the small stuff, or is it something you can, you know, get use out of at the low scale as well?
We usually don't go under 5,000 seats or endpoints. We're in all 4 branches of the military, 12 to 15 largest U.S. banks. I mean, the biggest, most complicated networks in the world. That's where we really excel there. So that means we can do anything underneath that. I mean, I've got a customer who's 25,000 endpoints, but they're a global manufacturing company where only 1/3 of their endpoints are on any time of day, that kind of thing. I mean, so we can really scale to anything that you need. But the thing is, once you've got that real-time communication platform, you can build on top of it all these different use cases. So whether it's compliance scanning for your SysCat standards and benchmarks, or vulnerability management, doing asset inventory. You know, we have a ServiceNow component where we can pump real-time asset data into ServiceNow, so that now when you're going in to look at the hardware and software assets related as a data set in your environment, you can see that always up to date, and you don't have to worry about where did this data come from. You know, CMDB is always a train wreck at most places.
Yeah, that's really
notoriously bad. So we basically look for hard problems to solve, and we have used the platform to do that. And so, we're, like I said, software deployment, patching. The crazy thing is, you know, like the Air Force publicly stated that they patched their whole environment in a weekend. You know, like literally, they took their patching from, or inventorying, you know, from 30 days to patching literally in a weekend. So it's just insane with like a couple hours, you know, the results, and having like 97, 98% patch compliance, which a lot of people think they have that, but when you actually start looking at patch supersedence and patches that they don't deploy because the infrastructure can't handle it, so they kind of force themselves to only deploy certain patches, and they just get used to that. But then when you step back and look at the broader picture, they're actually more exposed than they realize. And so we help people, you know, overcome those challenges. You know, third-party patching, you know, like Chrome and Firefox and Adobe and whatever, all that stuff. We can do all that very quickly with customers, you know, without flooding the network, and especially helping in those, connection situations where it's thinly connected.
So I have had some opportunity to do a few things with Tanium, and I've had a little bit of Tanium training. Now, when you say Tanium is real time, it really means real time. So if I, in the Tanium console, and I ask a question, it's going to go get everything from the machines that are on at that time. So What happens, like when you're patching and you've got, you know, people whose machines are offline because, you know, they're at home, they're on vacation, they come back a week later. How does Tanium handle that kind of thing?
Yeah, so 2 scenarios there. So number 1 is querying data. Most traditional enterprise solutions have a rack of servers and banks of storage, and they warehouse the data centrally.
Right.
And then you query the database. We talk to the endpoints live.
Yes.
So we're telling you exactly what's in the environment right now. And that presents a challenge when machines are roaming or offline. So we'll get the people out on the internet, but if they've turned their machine off, we will show you recent results. So last time they were on, here's what they had, up to a week old data. So you really can get in through what we call a saved question that you re-ask on an interval every few hours. You can actually see, you can ask that question and see current results beside recent results. So it gives you a more accurate picture of what's actually in your environment.
Okay.
When it comes to patching, you just set up a deployment. And you can give it all the same things you would expect in any patching solution of maintenance windows, and you have pre-staged the files to the endpoint. So as soon as the maintenance window clicks in, and we're starting right away. You've got end user notifications for reboots and deferrals and all that. We can do that just like everybody else can with software deployment. But the thing that's different is the speed.
Yeah.
And so is the old joke of slow moving software. We kind of squash that one. Yeah.
So what are the platforms supported, and do we need to know more than that? I mean, like APIs and things like that. So
yeah, so Windows, Mac, and Linux, we're going to support most of those flavors that you're used to using every day, whether it's Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, and a whole host of other flavors, SUSE, whatever. And then even some Solaris and AIX. We have some support for that. Mac, I'm driving a Mac, leaving Microsoft. Now I'm driving a Mac every day using Google Suite and Slack. And
yep.
So, we support Macs.
Bay Area, right? So it's Redmond, Bay Area. You're
right.
running the Bay Area suite.
Yep. Yeah, that's it.
So, same here.
So support a lot of managed platforms.
Or, things like network devices that just have an API that you might be able to hit.
Yeah, we do not manage network devices. That's not in our camp. There are plenty of other suites that do that. Now, we can do some mild scanning for vulnerabilities on those devices, but we interface with some, Palo Alto or Cisco ICE. We can send some alerts to, hey, block this particular IP or subnet with some things going on, things like that. But we really don't manage network devices. We can discover them, however. We have a whole module just on discovering what's in your environment. So any interface will give you the MAC address, then like the manufacturer code of that MAC, so you can see what types of devices are in your environment and what ports are open. Basically do an nmap scan in a very sneaky way across the entire environment that doesn't flood the network and gives you all this data. Again, within an hour or so, I can have a picture of all the IP interfaces, the HVAC systems, the IoT systems, whatever. I'll get all that, my printers, and put all that into one view, and then I can tag that, label it, and have an accurate inventory as well. It's just, like I said, it's a phenomenal platform.
Would that work even if I have overlapping IP networks, for example?
Yeah, I have customers with overlapping IP networks, and we actually record their client, the IP the client knows, and then the NAT IP that comes into the server. So we record both of those. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So for the script support, like the PowerShell stuff,
mm-hmm.
I'm sending out a PowerShell script across, end nodes, and those end nodes may have different versions of PowerShell. How do you handle that kind of stuff with the PowerShell support in Tanium?
Yeah, our client goes all the way down to XP.
Okay.
So a large...
Install the Windows management framework, kids.
Right. So we have a large portion of our scripting that's even still in VBScript. VBScript or Batch even. We've done some work in that. I hadn't touched VBScript I did VBScript for about 12 years before I went to Microsoft and just laid it down and then picked it back up again here at Taenia. But when PowerShell, though, Windows 7, PowerShell v2 is usually your common denominator. We try to write to that level, but I was just writing some content today and I had to kind of skirt around that because I had some stuff that was only for Windows 10 using PowerShell 5.1. So,
right.
But yeah, you can deploy any flavor of PowerShell. Most enterprises haven't adopted Core, so that's not really on the radar yet until we get wider adoption, more customer requests. But, I run Core and VS Code on my Mac, and I'm in that all day long. But you can run your Bash scripts, Python. We even have a Python interpreter that we put within our client so that we can interpret Python on Windows, Mac, or Linux just the same as well. Yeah.
So what is the most successful, Tanium admin, I mean, what tools are they bringing? So, I mean, you've got Python there, PowerShell, we know it's cross-platform now. What is easier for the Tanium admin to achieve a certain, automation thing in? I mean, is it going to be easier to do it in Python, or is it, it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. It's just what you know, right? And that's kind of the beauty of the platform. Other products you might have to learn a special language, but you don't have to do that with Tanium. Just bring the skills you have and automate it.
It'd be sweet if you could just use Tanium to push PowerShell Core out to all your endpoints, and then you can just have everything in PowerShell Core.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, we can deploy software really fast.
Problem solved.
Yep.
Everything's PowerShell now.
The challenge with Core, I think, is going to be long term. I mean, I love Core. I've got it on. I even demonstrated Core, I think it was 2 years ago. I did a demo to a conference where I had Core on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and a Raspberry Pi with VS Code and Core running on a Pi right when it first shipped. So you can run Core just about anywhere, but you can also install it side by side. And I think that's going to become a management challenge down the road. Haven't heard a lot of people talk to that yet, but if I can have side-by-side instances of Core, because what I'm thinking is I've been doing a lot of work lately on PowerShell security, and PowerShell Core shipped with, there's a JSON file that you can specify, like the script block logging, module logging, transcription. You can, do all of that in Core, but now I'm going to have to go find every instance of Core on the box to configure that as a JSON file beside the binary. And I'm not looking forward to that. That's going to be a real challenge. But for now, it's pretty easy with Windows.
Right.
So how do you account for, how do you install an agent? And how do you know if your agent's installed and healthy?
Yeah. So there's a number of different methods for deploying the agent. We deploy, usually we say to customers, the best way to deploy it is whatever you use now, whether that's SCCM or Altiris or BigFix or even McAfee. I've got some people deploying agents with. Whatever you've already got in place, it's kind of a chicken and the egg. You want to do systems management, you got to get an agent on there somehow, typically. And so we'll go with whatever you've got. If you don't have that, if you meet certain requirements, we can kind of shotgun the agent, say, here's a list of all of our known local admin credentials, and here's a range of IPs. Let's just shotgun this subnet and see, what we can get installed. So there's a number of ways. That's kind of we'd rather use more proper methods, but we can do that as well.
But like you said, it's a chicken and egg problem. I mean,
right.
You're greenfield. It's okay. That's an interesting challenge. So how do you know that you're done? I mean, can you scan my network for IPs?
Yeah, right.
Kind of compare against what's in my actual inventory or something like that?
Yeah, so it's perfect for like an acquisition scenario. I went through this with one of my customers. They were acquiring a manufacturing facility in another country, and they wanted to know, hey, we just acquired this company. Are we bringing a bunch of malware on old systems into our environment? What are we getting?
Yes.
So,
the answer is actually yes.
Yeah. So we install the agent on their endpoints, and then we can get it on enough just to begin to scan the environment, see what other machines we've missed, and then attempt to install remotely. And if not, then, in that case, some underprivileged countries, it turns into SneakerNet at some point, but you got to bring it under management some way if there's never been a management agent on that box. But then once it's under management, then you've got a lot more visibility. But imagine having an automation platform for in-map scans that's very graceful and lightweight on the network. So then you can see the OS fingerprinting and all of that. Yeah.
So once you've seen that OS fingerprint, can you then say, okay, I need to push my agent out there?
Again, the chicken and the egg is if that manufacturing system has been on the plant floor for 10 years and only one guy knows the local admin password, there's not a lot we can help you with there, right? We can't break the laws of physics, but we've had great success nonetheless.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm happy to talk about Tanium all night long, but I know there's people that probably want to talk about other PowerShell topics as well, but PowerShell on Tanium is a better together story. It's really nice. Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm interested in learning about Tanium, like I actually am. So.
Oh, okay. Sure. We can talk about it all night. That's
then
fine.
we'll go wherever we go. So, that's always the way the podcast has worked out anyway.
So if I have a bunch of PowerShell scripts that I want to use Tanium to do my administration, I want to run my scripts via Tanium. Can I store my scripts in GitHub? Is there like a storage mechanism within Tanium or a repository, or how does that work?
So we have what we call sensors and packages. Sensors are reading data from an endpoint. Packages are taking action on an endpoint. And so sensor is literally just a snippet of code. It's not actually it could be a script that you just copy and paste into the interface, and that it goes down at the time it's requested of the endpoint. That could be, again, any scripting language you prefer. If it's a package, we'll attach the scripts to that package. So when it runs, it'll go down to the endpoint. Again, using that lightweight chaining where it only sends it once per subnet, so that it'll then run the scripts, bring the data back, take the action it needs. But then we also can do it as a kind of a toolbox method where, okay, I know I'm going to be using this script a lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and have a package that saves that locally on the endpoint, and then I'll just call it anytime I need it. But we don't do, I imagine we could. It's just a matter of figuring out and automating it. But, we could probably set up some type of a PowerShell module repo or something and pull them in. But most of what we've done has been copying the files to the endpoint, or just copying them down once as a tool package and leaving it there.
But no, I think there's a different question in here of like, okay, I have a library of things that I want to do. Want to use version control to track that as it's being developed. I link that to Tanium, or must I log into Taenia, click a button, paste the code that I've got in version control elsewhere? You see what I'm saying? Like, how do you link the development of your code to Taenia?
So internally, I'm writing content and storing that in GitHub. We have an enterprise Git instance, and then that goes to Jenkins and we do a build and all that, and so it goes through the release process. But there's nothing automated to bring that back into the platform.
Okay.
That is a good angle that we could look at in the future. We do have a full REST API for managing the platform. So if you want to ask questions, take actions, whatever type of things you want to do in Tanium, you can automate them from REST API as well. So we could probably build some integration like that, but today it doesn't exist.
So I want to ask you about if I have scripts that I want deployed down to my machines that I may use later. Are those scripts encrypted or something so they can't be changed on the endpoint? Because I would hate to lay some script, have it sitting on a machine, somebody to go, oh, this script's going to run eventually, make a change to it, and then just wait.
Yeah. Yeah. So most of our scripts are delivered at runtime, so that you don't have to worry about that. There are some script packages that do reside on the endpoint. However, we do harden that directory.
Okay.
So only local system or administrator would have access to that scripts directory anyway. So it is hardened.
And then my scripts are going to run in local system context?
Yeah, everything runs as local system.
Okay. Is there a way to run as a specific user if for some reason I needed to? I mean, in this type of scenario with Tanium, you probably wouldn't need to, because you're going to touch every endpoint individually. So it's not like you're doing an invoke command against another machine or something like that.
Right. It's all executed as this context of that local system, which is different than what we think about PowerShell remoting at scale is really not what's happening here. It's actually running on the local endpoint in the system context.
Yes.
Yeah. I know when we deploy software, there's some packages have to run in a user context, and there's some tricks around that. I don't know what our deploy guys have done in that space, but I know there's some cases where it's been that. I'm curious to hear from you guys. I think you both have some experience with Tanium in your companies. What's it been like for you, and what have you seen heard with Tanium use cases.
The main use case that we have is something that it's used by a security team within the organization, and we don't have much visibility on the infrastructure side to what they're doing. I mean, some of us on the infrastructure side, we got training on Tanium, but we never got access to do anything with it.
Yeah.
So there was a project that I was looking at where I was working with them, and I got some access in the development environment, and I was using it to run some code and things like that. But I haven't done anything with it since then. But I know that it's in use for sure a lot.
And that's the thing; it spans so many different groups in a typical IT enterprise. Sometimes one group will purchase it and they want to hold the keys to it rather than share it with the other groups. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an extremely powerful tool.
It is.
You could absolutely shoot yourself in the foot very, very fast with Tanium. You can do a lot of damage in a big hurry. You can do a lot of good in a big hurry. You can also do a lot of damage in a big hurry.
SCCM, it might take you a couple of days to hurt yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do it in a couple of minutes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys are hearing that in the background. Apparently in New York, there's just always background noises. I don't know if this is like a known thing or what, but there was a question earlier in the chat I wanted to make sure I ran past you. Is Tanium one thing that is purchased, or is it like a suite of products and modules that are purchased separately?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have Core, which includes the platform, the Interact, where you can ask questions and get results in seconds across your enterprise. And it also includes a data pump we call the Connect module, which basically you could take any data that you can get out of Tanium, put it on a schedule, and send it out to QRadar or Splunk or a SQL database or ServiceNow. I mean, any number of external SIMs or destinations, syslogs, anywhere you want to send it. Even emails, flat files, CSV. Basically, export that stuff out of Tanium all day long. Alerts, however you want to send it out through Connect. Trends is our module for graphing and dashboard type stuff, where you want to see, okay, over time, how's my Windows 10 deployment going? And so I can see the charted graph of Windows 7, 8, 10, and see where that, how that moves over time.
Yeah, which build of Windows 10 do I have in my environment this week?
Yeah. So you can get all that detailed reporting, and we've got a whole, and then inside of that core platform, though, we have tons of content that TAMs write for customers, and then we share it with other customers. So I've written a whole suite of content right now around PowerShell security. So how to automate PowerShell policies across the enterprise for all the logging and transcription, keep that stuff clean, see how much retention I've got, how many days of log activity I've got with the size of my event, all that type of stuff that you want to do, and then scan that for malware. So I created a whole set of that. That's available just as additional content you can import in the core platform. So it's incredibly extensible. It's a platform for creators, and that's what I love about it. On top of that, then we do have individual modules that you can add. So things like map, if you want to take that netstat data and draw a picture of what's in your environment, see where the dev is still talking to prod when it shouldn't be because of the connections, all that kind of stuff. Doing a cloud migration, you want to see where machines are connected before you move them out to the cloud, that kind of stuff. That's the map module. We've got the asset module I mentioned, which will give you a full inventory of all your hardware and software, who are the users on your machines, and then you can send that off to Flexera or ServiceNow. We've got the Discover module, which will help you inventory all the interfaces in your environment, tag them, inventory them, and then bring those under management. We've got the compliance scanning I mentioned earlier with Syscat, Jovel, the vulnerability management. Of course, then we've got the software deployment, the patching, And then the whole threat response suite around, incident response use cases with quarantining machines and doing live connections into endpoints and looking at the last 30 days of any activity that happened on that box forensically. Taking memory images of machines, looking at all the auto runs, malware hunting at scale. Show me where this executable, like index the whole hard drive, and I've got a list of hashes. This is actually a customer use case I helped a customer with a few weeks ago. They said, we've got this list of this hash of all like 40 different Shockwave games that are running around our enterprise, and we want to find everywhere they are and delete them. So here's this list of hashes that we put on a blacklist. Now show me all the machines where those exist. So tons of use cases. Yeah.
So and as a fellow, I work also at a platform software company. I can totally appreciate what you're talking about. It's like you have this palette, this tool set,
right,
and then you just kind of go off and it's you can be creative, and that's one thing I like about that type of product.
So the crazy thing about that is you can run all of that for hundreds of thousands of endpoints literally with a handful of servers. I mean, you can do, 20,000 endpoints with just one or two servers. I mean, you can run hundreds of
infrastructure for this is very light, is what you're saying.
Super light infrastructure, which when you think about every point solution that you have for every one of those individual use cases I just mentioned, you've got a rack of servers or servers deployed across, WAN links and all this. And think about, we've had customers tell us they have hundreds of servers scattered all across their environment just for tooling. It's not doing real work. It's just tooling. It's not business work.
Thousands.
It works at.
Yeah, thousands. So imagine imagine just the hardware and maintenance cost savings alone by taking all of those and platforming the whole endpoint. So now I've got a single agent with a couple servers that I can reach endpoints anywhere in the world in faster than I ever could. It's just like this inverse that just blows your mind. It's like less servers, more speed. It's not supposed to work that way, but it does. And so I can literally shut off racks of servers that are just maintaining solutions and all that maintenance and cost for all those different point solutions and roll that in literally to a couple servers. And again, I want to be careful. I don't want to sound like I'm selling Tanium on this podcast. I'm just, as an engineer, I'm just like super
chat room
nerdy.
It's easy to geek out.
Yeah.
Once you've seen it, how fast it works, it's easy to get excited. That's for sure.
Yeah, I see somebody had a question. How is it licensed? It's per endpoint. Yeah. So basically, how many endpoints do you have? And then after that, it's different modules that you would add on to that.
So you're still going to have other agents in the environment at the end of the day, right? So is it kind of like Tanium is the one that rules them all, the one ring kind of thing?
It can be. It really depends on what use cases you use in those other solutions.
I'm just randomly came top of mind, endpoint protection, antivirus, that kind of thing.
Right.
You're still going to have those, right?
Yeah. So we do not do AV.
Right. So
here's what we can do. So you got your semantic.
That agent.
Right. We can help your agent be healthier. So we can tell you everywhere that agent's installed or not installed, is the service running, we can even deliver your DAT files for you so it's thinner on the wire to get those updates out there. And we can then deploy that agent. We do this all the time for products that aren't competing with us. We can deploy those agents and keep them healthy. Even SCCM, as a former Microsoft employee, we know that's a full-time job to keep your SCCM clients healthy. And we have a whole suite of content just to keep those clients healthy and to show you trends in your environment about how many machines are not reporting in or reporting to the wrong server. All those client health issues with any agent out there, we have content to help you improve that across your environment. And you can automate the remediation of those clients as well.
WMI health issues.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not as bad with Windows 10.
Yeah, they just created a package for that, and so they have it automatically deployed to endpoints. So many times a day, anytime somebody shows up that the client's broken, it just automatically redeploys and fixes it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Can you collect logs with Tanium and send them to Splunk or somewhere?
So the Tanium architecture thrives on small data packets.
Okay.
So if you want to harvest like entire, megs of, I'd hope not gigs, but megs of log files off of endpoints.
Could be gigs if it's a domain controller.
Gigs, that's not really our sweet spot.
Okay. So I'll kind of answer the question that I see from my customers, which is the results of the questions that you ask. And basically bringing that to other, bringing the visibility of that to other groups, other audiences, integrating with tools. So I just did this thing in Tanium, and here are the answers to it. And now I need to, build some, visibility, some workflow, some.
So the other thing Tanium teaches you to think about your problems differently. Okay, I want all these logs, but why do I really want do I really want all those logs, or do I want to know just the thing that those logs are going to tell me, right? So instead, I can have my endpoint, like the way I've written this PowerShell security solution, is I just distribute a list of 300 of the most popular post-exploit malware PowerShell commands. So tell me if these are anywhere in your logs, and just tell me which commands have been used on that machine. I don't need to send the whole haystack over the network. Just give me the needles, right? And so that's the Tanium approach. We don't need to flood the SIM with all these logs that we're never going to look at. All we want to know is let's go find the meaningful data in that log, and then let's report on that, which is probably a better way to solve that problem.
Well, it depends on the problem. Because one of the things that you get from like Splunk and Looker is the ability to search across, to be able to do correlations based on time across multiple machines, right? Hal can obviously talk to that much better than I can. Right. Yes. But I don't see, you could, I'm not sure how you would solve that with Tanium.
Yeah. You're not going to persist the data for a long period of time. And you're not going to have the ability to do kind of open-ended analytics.
Right.
It seems like the rock that they were built for is to touch the endpoints, any scale, and then get some information back, and then
fast
touch them again. Yeah, fast.
Right. And so that's why Splunk is one of our partners, because right, we're solving two different problems. Splunk solves a problem, and we solve a problem. And they're complementary. Yep. Good questions.
So Ryan's got some PowerShell questions.
Okay.
Even though it's like 3:00 in the morning in the UK. He's here.
Appreciate you hanging in there, Ryan.
So he wants to know what your view is on the current state of PowerShell, especially as things are moving to Core, and as Core will eventually be integrated back into Windows.
Yeah, that's an interesting problem to solve. Because I kind of had a front row seat to all that when I was at Microsoft and working. I worked directly with some members of the PowerShell team and was getting feedback from customers, arranging PM calls and things like that. And as Core was emerging, and like everybody else, I'm pretty excited about Core, but I know some people are going to disagree with me, but I feel like with like DSC, we kind of lost our way. I was really heavy into DSC, and I felt like there was some ambiguity in the vision for DSC. And I want to be really careful. I'm not throwing stones. It's a fantastic technology, and I know Azure uses it like crazy. But when we went cross-platform, all of a sudden it really splintered things. And you kind of have to look at, again, take the long view, right? The Monad Manifesto, take the long view. We've got a lot to accomplish. And so we kind of had to put the pause when we hit 5.1. Said, now, wait a minute. I remember Jeffrey telling a story. It's like, I went to this Unix manager, and he was upset because his Unix guys couldn't use PowerShell. And so it's like, okay, let's make PowerShell for the rest of the world. But then all of a sudden you have to stop, and you're gonna lose some forward momentum. You have to take a step back to actually now revisit that and cross-platform. We just got out grid view, right? Cross-platform. It took us, a couple of years to get out grid view cross-platform because there's a lot of challenges to that, right? Mm-hmm. So naturally, there's going to have to be some step back and reevaluate, evaluate some of our base assumptions of what is PowerShell, who's the audience, what's it going to do, what are the limits that we're going to have to abide by. And of course, with cross-platform .NET, that really opened the door because there were projects for .NET, but once Microsoft got on board and really owned it and made a cross-platform .NET, it really made PowerShell possible then. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be interesting, thinking from a security standpoint. So there's a PowerShell downgrade attack where if I can do PowerShell.exe -version 2, I can run code on a machine that's going to evade the module logging and transcription, for example, and the script block logging. Well, now there's another evasion of an upgrade attack, because if there's PWSH on the machine, now I can, instead of using Windows PowerShell, I can call PWSH, and most likely that customer has not configured the logging for PowerShell Core.
Okay.
So, and like I mentioned earlier, trying to keep up with all those standalone side-by-side, potentially, most people are going to have deployed one version of PWSH on their machines, but there'll be some power users who may have side-by-side installs at different releases. And how do I manage all that?
Those edge cases are what the hackers thrive for and look for.
Right.
Yeah, that's the whole
thing. So group policy today, you don't have that cross-platform, and even group policy is designed for a single footprint Windows kind of world where I think group policy would struggle to manage PWSH. So I see some management challenges in the future, and I'm sure we'll get there, but it's going to be a long road to make it where PowerShell is as manageable in the enterprise, but it's a messy world, right? One of the reasons I left Microsoft was to try to learn how the rest of the world works. Before I left Microsoft, I'd already bought a MacBook on my own because I'd never used a Mac in my life. So I set up, I installed Parallels, I had a Windows, Mac, and Linux all on one box, and I'm doing PowerShell remoting over SSH between all three. It was just like a hoot. I'm doing all this PowerShell on 3 different platforms on one box. So that's the messy world that we live in. Whether it's cloud or on-premise, it doesn't matter. You've got all these different OSs, and Microsoft is responding to that. And it doesn't mean that we have all the answers when we start out. You're going to have to solve some of those challenges as we go. And I think the PowerShell team has done a tremendous job of embracing the community and making it a community effort, and doing sprints and iterations where they can take that feedback. And I still get emails from discussions in GitHub PowerShell with some of the issues lists that I've contributed to, and seeing those active discussions going on. So they're the hard problems to solve, but we can solve them together. So that's a bit of rambling, but I hope I kind of answered Ryan's questions there. Let me know, Ryan, if there's other angles you've got on there that you want me to respond to.
What do you think about the growth of the PowerShell community that you've seen?
Wow. It's really easy to kind of see, like I've known you guys for years.
Sure.
There's people in the MVPs, and I've been to the summit. I've spoken at the summit 6 years now. I think it's only been like 7 years that it's been around. So I've been in the community. I've been in the Twitter. I've been in the blogging. I've been in the whole community experience. And now it's at early on, it's easy to say, yeah, I know that guy, and I've read his blog before. But over time, it just gets so large, it kind of takes on its own life. And so you can't say that, early on when it was started, it was a really tight community, and it still is. But there's so many more people that have added into that community, it's hard to keep up with all of them. But it is great to see different people come in and just like take off like a rocket.
It's kind of like it's a good problem to have.
Right. It's a good problem. Yeah.
I almost feel like we're on our third generation of PowerShell community. There was like the, kind of the initial group, and then that group grew, and then now we've got, this additional group, and, we've got, some people who've been using PowerShell for just a couple of years who are on fire, and they're making all kinds of contributions to the PowerShell code itself. And then we've got other people who've been using it since it was Monad, and, know all the issues with PowerShell version 2 that nobody, some of these new people have never even seen PowerShell 2. They don't care. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing the problems we're solving and people that are bringing up from the community. I mean, some of the largest contributors to the PowerShell repo are not Microsoft employees.
Yeah. And some of them are pretty new to the community too.
Yeah.
Which is just awesome.
Yeah. And then you throw an editor like VS Code behind it, and it makes it even more.
So can you get a little more specific? I mean, are either of you participating in the open source project actively, recently?
Not recently. I
did for like a small period of time, right around when it was new. And I did some minor stuff, some doc fixes and, some couple of enhancement requests and stuff like that. But I haven't really touched it in a long time. I was kind of curious if you guys had a sense for is that part of the community working out like it seemed it was going to do when they started.
I know Joey and Steve have the community calls, and I would encourage folks to join those if you're really interested in keeping on your pulse, the finger on the pulse, the heartbeat of that. Follow them on Twitter, look at the PowerShell team blog, and look for those. It's a reoccurring cadence, and it's actually out there in the PowerShell repo somewhere. There's a list with the Skype phone meeting and schedule and all that. You can join those, and I mean, you can talk directly to the Microsoft PMs. I mean, think about that 5 or 10 years ago. That just would never happen, but they've opened the doors, and now you can do that. It's a fantastic opportunity to really make a difference.
Yeah, I remember Joey talking about the percentage of pull requests that are coming from the community and the percentage that are coming from Microsoft. And I'm trying to think, I think this was around January. I think it was about half and half. Where, or I think more than half of the pull requests were coming from the community and not Microsoft. And I know that there was a dashboard where you could see that, but I don't have that in front of me.
And there's some big discussions going on right now, like the future of error handling in PowerShell as a language. I mean, that's a hot topic right now that they're really seeking community input on, and people can really make a difference there. The issue thread on that one goes for a long way. And Jason's got this new video series. I don't know if you've had a chance to check that out.
The show? Yes, cool. I have. It's great.
The show. Right. Yeah. Behind the scenes is hooray for Jason. He's a PM now. So you got him coming on next show. We're really interested to hear from him. Yeah. But Jason and I, we did a number of projects together. Really enjoy working with Jason, and always enjoy seeing him at the summit every year. But he's got some great stuff. Just it's remarkable things you never dreamed about. People are doing with PowerShell nowadays.
So, anywhere else? Anything else we should be pulling out of your brain today, Ashley?
I'm still speaking at about 4 conferences a year. And the topic that I've been writing a lot for the last couple of years is PowerShell security. We think about all the threat actors in the world who are using post exploits in PowerShell. Back in 2015, right after Lee Holmes released the PowerShell Hearts the Blue Team blog post, it was just like groundbreaking with all the new level of visibility into the PowerShell, what's happening on the machine. Shortly after that, PowerShell Empire was released at B-Sides Las Vegas with this basically a toolkit to let you leverage PowerShell to compromise environments. Post-exploit is very important to understand that means PowerShell was not the way they got in.
Right.
Usually it's a phishing attack or something like that, right? Or an infected document. But once they're in, all these toolkits. And so PowerShell Empire paved the way for that. They just announced that it's dead back this July. At the end of July, they said, it's been a good run. We're no longer going to maintain it. And I looked at their website today, and they actually took the website offline. The repo's still there. You can still get it on GitHub, but and now there's this whole next generation of exploit toolkits, post-exploit toolkits. But the thing is, being in the enterprise trenches in Kubeland as an IT worker, there are I would venture to say 75% of the IT professionals have no idea that stuff is even a problem. And even though they've killed the Empire toolkit, it's now commodity malware that any script kiddie can use to own your environment. And that's an awareness campaign that I've been on, even though that toolkit's dead. It's never dead because it's still on the internet. People are still going to have the code. I just recently saw some code from a customer that said, hey, this turned up in our logs. And it was literally just copy and paste commodity PowerShell malware. They just changed a function name. Mm-hmm. And that stuff's going to be around for a long time. So I'm trying to help customers using Tanium at speed and scale with this toolkit that I built to help them find that stuff. Because you can tell when PowerShell executed on your machines, but to actually go beyond that and see what commands were used and get that
right
real-time response.
Settings
right.
enabled. So, so I meant to go back to this related to Tanium. You guys certainly must take very special care in the securing of your product. Because
sure.
Those are the keys of the kingdom now. So right. Is there anything, that you want to kind of comment on? Is, how does Tanium secure what they do?
Oh, sure. So we use keys and certificates to make sure that everything's trusted in our environment. Right. So a client gets a packet and it's signed. It's not going to execute anything in there unless it can validate that signature, right, with the keys. So, and we're in our next release, we're even taking that to the next level with even more encryption than we've had. Encryption, so authentication and encryption both are going to higher levels than they've been in the past. But we're in all four branches of the DoD and several federal agencies, so you can imagine the level of scrutiny that we've had. We have external verification of our own security posture, as well as our own internal team that is actively hunting for vulnerabilities within our own product, and we do our own security hot fixes as well. So we clearly take that very seriously.
Good deal.
Yeah, good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Jonathan, you ready to kind of wind it down?
Well, there's one thing that I need to do that Ryan wanted me to make sure that anybody who listens to this soon enough knows about PowerShell Day UK. That's coming up 2 days from now, and it's in Birmingham, and you can find it at psday.uk. You can still register. They still have a few tickets available, and Ryan wanted to make sure that anybody who needed that information, it gets out to them. If you go look at the schedule, there's a who's who of the European PowerShell geniuses are speaking. So I would love to be there. It looks like it's going to be very cool. And if you want more information, you can follow PSDay UK, that Twitter handle, or check out the website at psday.uk.
Awesome.
Yeah, I just dropped a link in the channel too. So when I spoke at the summit back in April, I did a hands-on lab with PowerShell security. So if people would like to learn more how script block logging, module logging, transcription, PS read line history, all that stuff, all those, if you're hunting for malicious PowerShell in your environment, there's some things you need to know. And so this walks you through how to build a lab at home, even and build your own Linux machine that's got Empire installed, and then launch an attack and see what it looks like through the logs of PowerShell. It's a lot of fun. And how to do that across platform, Windows, Mac, and Linux. So there's a lot of cool stuff built into that hands-on lab. You can build it out, walk through. It's basically a lab guide that like you would pay thousands of dollars to go get trained on. It's all there for free. It's out on my GitHub, and I hope that it can help bring more awareness to PowerShell security.
Thank you. I will make sure that ends up in the show notes for this episode as well as your Twitter handle. Is there anybody else? Is there anywhere else that you would like us to send people who want to get in contact with you and keep up with what you're up to?
Really, Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, I regret that I don't have a blog necessarily anymore. The blog's still up for what was published there, but I don't have a place where I'm actively blogging right now. But I do keep tabs on Twitter. Yep.
And I know you're also in the PowerShell Slack.
Yeah, I'm Slack all day, so just ping me in the PowerShell Slack if you need anything as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for spending some time with us tonight, Ashley.
Yeah, it's good to catch up with you guys. Good to see you again.
Yes, good to see you too.
Yeah.
All righty. Thank you, everybody in the chat room, for helping out with questions and discussion. And yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad you were able to end up joining us, Hal.
Me too. It was. I looked at my calendar and it was like, it was one of those things where if the plane's on time, which normally out of Delta, out of Atlanta, not a problem. Then I had plenty of time to get to the hotel, and I had like an hour free, so it was awesome. The only problem was my wife, the last minute. So this has been kind of funny. I think I talked one of our last shows about how I got a 3D printer,
yes.
And I have been having a lot of fun with that. And Stacy is starting to get into it now. Like, she's been doing some of the design work.
Okay.
But I was traveling this week, and there was some stuff that she wanted to get done. So I had to buy something. I bought a Raspberry Pi in order to connect to the 3D printer so that I could then do some stuff remotely, which that was cool. I mean, that was just, I'd never done anything with Raspberry Pis before. So now it's like my hobby just kind of bifurcated, like two different. But so I was doing that. And then she was driving down to Florida today. She got there and she's like, okay, I'm setting up this 3D printer so I can start this job, blah, 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 blah. And I can't get the Raspberry Pi on the Wi-Fi, and I'm like, oh, you just plug in the network cable, honey. What network cable?
Oh,
okay. You know how you change the IP address? I mean, the Wi-Fi settings. You basically have to take the micro SD card and mount it, and then edit a text file on there, and then you put it back, and then you boot it back up. That's basically it. So. It was not something that I could walk her through very easily.
Right.
I was like, I don't think that's going to happen, honey. But anyway, we finished. I got her done enough in time, so I was able to join the podcast. It worked out.
Wonderful.
Anyway, all right. It was great seeing you guys again, talking with you, Ashley.
Yeah.
And but I've got to run. I've got to get up early in the morning.
All right.
You guys take care.
Y'all.
Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.
Take care. Bye.